my secret. Just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
This Filipino American Life is a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at Iba Pa. My name is Elaine Delalas, and I'm joined by my fellow hosts,
Ryan Carpio,
Joe Bernardo,
and
Mike.
Producer Mike.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
It's been a while.
Oh, it's been a while.
I know.
The TFAL of the episode is a business. Thank you,
What?
small business. The business is Tricombe Seattle.
Oh, from
The CID.
From Seattle.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're in the Chinatown International District. When we did our Seattle trip last year, we visited their store and
Right
we
on.
hung out, and they apparently are a Patreon. So thank you very much, Tricombe Seattle, for your
Thank
support.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
they
you,
got
thank you.
great clothes. They got a lot of knickknacks, a lot of
Yes.
urban
Paddywhacks.
wear.
Give a dog
and
a
of
bone.
course, and of course, they have a lot of weed products, cannabis
Yes.
products.
They have a pillow that looks like a nug of herb. It's great.
And we have a voicemail to share.
What? People call
Yes.
us? What's our phone number?
I know, right? What is it?
1-800-45-CLOSET.
No.
It's funny.
805.
I want to make the joke like our number is like 976 something, but I don't think people. Do you guys know what that
Pick up the phone.
976? I guess our age bracket would know what 976 something means.
Yeah.
Like
How is
976
it-
RYAN. That's 976 RYAN. 99 cents per minute, then 3.99 after that.
So what's the
Anyway.
976 number, Ryan? Is that an 80s version of OnlyFans?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess we're right into the thick of it. Let's move on.
But yeah.
Our phone number.
Yes, our phone number is 805-394-TFAL. And you could leave a voicemail and we will play them on the show.
Yes.
If they are short enough, because
Yes.
if you are really long, we may not be able to play it because it might go over. So this is perfect.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the person who called us from the 425 number, your call got cut off. There is a limit, and so unfortunately we can't play it. But just a shout out to you. She referenced the parent. Was it not the parenting? Is it?
Oh, I don't know, but it was the episode
Yeah.
where I was lying to my parents about hanging out and sleeping over Mike's apartment.
Yes.
So it's
The
that episode.
abstinence
It doesn't matter
one.
anymore. We're married already. It's okay.
We're
Who cares?
married.
It all worked out.
Yeah. She was trying to make the point that Filipino women, are judged more harshly, are parented differently and more harshly than males, and that's definitely
Yeah.
right.
Our gallivanting is different.
Yeah, and it's totally unfair. But yeah, try to keep it short next time. But here is the new voicemail coming from San Jose. Actually, coming from Seoul, Korea.
Hi, TFAL crew. My name is Kyle James Abraham. I know my name does not sound Filipino, but I am. My sister even took one of those DNA tests, and we are at least 92% Filipino. Born in Cali, raised in San Jose, California, but I am currently based in Seoul, South Korea, where I have been for the last 3+ years. I started listening to TFAL a couple months ago, and it has really been a personal and meaningful opportunity for me to reflect on my own experiences as a Philam while hearing the narratives of others in our community. I've yet to catch up to the most recent episode since I started from the beginning, but I hope to get around to it within the next month or two. Keep it up. I love it. So many awesome episodes. I especially love the ones featuring historic Filipino town in Little Tokyo in LA. Even though I've never met any of you or your guests on the show, I feel so connected by simply hearing your stories. If by chance you and your listeners are interested in what life is like as a Phil-Am expat in Korea during the current global health pandemic, let me know. So much love for TFAL. Can't wait to hear more.
Yay!
Aw, that's
Yay.
cool.
Thank
Yay
you for
from
listening
Seoul.
to us.
Thank you. You know all the things about BTS, I guess, and Blackpink, and I'm trying to sound cool, like I know Korean pop, K-pop, but I don't. But yeah,
And the K dramas.
Oh,
Like-
yes.
all those things.
Yeah, and eating a lot of soul food.
Oh, good one. Nice. Well played, sir. Well
I feel
played.
like the only thing Korean we're really good at is Korean barbecue.
Oh, yeah. Experts.
Although I don't go to Korean barbecue restaurants anymore. Like when I
Well,
get
'cause of
Korean
COVID.
food. Well, obviously, but like I'm like I've been enjoying a lot of the like sundubus, like a lot of the soups that Koreans have.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I
But
still like
we're spoiled. We're spoiled here in LA that there's a lot of variety of Korean restaurants here.
this is true.
Yeah.
I like going to Korean barbecue and gorging myself on meats.
Castle 1, Castle 2.
I like ook.
There's
Oh.
one time I signed up for 3 different Korean barbecue restaurants within the same like block, and then
Right.
whoever texted me first is the one we're gonna go to. My friend and I did that. Like we were in line for one, and we already put our names down for the other, and they text you if it's
Yeah.
ready. But it's so popular, everybody's there, and it's like it's gonna take a long time. And whoever texts us first, we're running to it. So we
Crazy.
left a line to go to another place. So, food
Yes.
adventures in Los Angeles. Anyway,
What are we talking about, Elaine?
We're talking about something that Mike and I kind of just did this weekend.
what
did we do, Mike?
Wait, hold
What'd
on,
you
hold
do?
on, hold on.
Wait.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
This
Is
is not
this,
an OnlyFans.
Is this
stuff.
Do we have to give a disclaimer before continuing?
what kind of episode?
Well, we kind of. Well, we like to go, back to the woods. Sometimes to go camping, sometimes just to be in the forest. But the great outdoors, basically.
Oh,
The great outdoors.
The great outdoors.
And
With
if
John
you're
Candy.
listening, if you're listening to this episode, you will have read what description is. It'll probably be called TFAL and the Great Outdoors. And it's like our
Nice.
experience,
Huh.
our experience with nature and camping and hiking and fishing, all
Fishing.
that cool, good stuff. Because Mike and I, we just came back from a road trip where, how many miles did you drive, Mike?
Like 1,200 or something.
Oh my
Because
god.
Oh wow.
I'm not allowed to
Chicago?
drive.
Did you make it to Vancouver?
I wish.
Yeah.
We
you could've.
drove to Lassen National Park, which is 2 hours north of Sacramento.
Of Nordhoff. Sorry, that's a Valley joke.
I totally thought it too, Joe, when I was up there. I was like, oh, hey, this is what the street is named after. But it's 2 hours north of Sacramento, which Sacramento, like here to Sacramento is what? That's already like
6, 7 hours.
6 hours.
hours.
Yeah.
6 hours.
So the whole trip was 9-hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah, we're on the road for a long time.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Elaine, do you drive any of those legs?
I did not drive any of the legs. I also did not volunteer because I was scared Mike would ask me to. But
I was
Mike-
waiting for Elaine to volunteer herself.
Interesting.
But usually Mike doesn't like it when I drive.
I have another question. Do you take in road trips? Do you take responsibility in making sure that like you tell stories and keep Mike awake and all that, or are you the type of person who's like,
She's just on her phone. I was chatting with Elaine while she was on the road.
I can confirm that Elaine was chatting with Joe while I was on the road.
Okay. So here's the deal. I don't sleep on the road.
okay,
On road
Yeah.
trips,
that's cool.
I cannot sleep. When my parents and I drove from Los Angeles to Houston, Texas, when I was
Mhm.
11, I was awake for a majority of the drive
That's
because
cool.
I was paranoid that my dad would fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I can't sleep on road trips. Mike, on the other hand, knocks out in 5 seconds. So
Yeah.
that's also why I don't drive, because if I drive, Mike will fall asleep,
And then you'll
and
fall
then
asleep
I'm
too.
like screwed.
I fall asleep while driving. You know, it's comfortable.
So we have a rule that if we're long driving, and our long driving is like to Las Vegas, it's not even that long, but like somebody kind of like stays awake with you, who's like shotgun or something like that. If you're not gonna, if there's more than one other passenger, if you're gonna fall asleep, you go in the back.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
No, that's a rule we have for road trips too.
yeah.
But-
Cool. Welcome back. From
I know.
Yes.
How was
Outdoors.
Yosemites?
Well, we didn't go there. So. But
Well, I mean,
We-
it's like. So the reason we went as far as we did was because it was like, I think the last national park in California, at least that I hadn't been to in some form or another. And so it was
is
just like,
Lassen
okay,
National Park.
yeah, Alaska National Park, and like it was just like so kind of an arbitrary goal, I guess. But also, I just
Cool.
really love going to national parks. Like my family, went on at least 2-3 camping trips a year since I was a kid. So it's kind of just built into kind of like our family vacation time was we're going to go to a national park or we're going to go camping or something like that, and that's how we spend our time. On breaks from work and school. So
do
So
you
Mike
have
grew
a
up camping.
do you have a national park passport?
Yes,
yes,
and
That's
we
cool.
both have them, and we stamp them.
That's cool.
Do you
That's-
have
totally
yours
gotten
with
other
you,
people
Mike?
into it too. No, it's in the car. It stays in the car because
So-
you never know when we'll be in a national park. So
that's
And so I got one because of Mike, and I remember I brought it to Hawaii on our honeymoon, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I was like stamping it everywhere, and then I realized, oh shit, I used all the West pages because the passport is broken up into different areas, like
Regions, yeah.
Pacific West, Northwest, or Central, Mountain, East Coast, all these things, because there's different national parks in these areas. And in Hawaii, like at Pearl Harbor, there's a stamp for like every ship. So I put like all of them in like their own page. And then I
Yeah.
was like, I used all the pages.
The
What's
passport.
happening? But I make it work now.
Is there a state version for state parks?
there should be. There isn't, but there should be.
Okay.
I don't think there is, but they do have like a junior ranger program, which is similar to the National Park Junior Ranger program, where if you're a kid or a kid at heart, you can fill out this like little book or little worksheet, and you learn about the park that you're at, and then they give you the park ranger will quiz you and then swear you in as a junior ranger, and then you get a little button that says you're a junior ranger for that particular park.
Wow.
As you can tell,
I've
Elena has gone through this process.
Yes,
As an
I've done
adult,
this
by the way.
process. An adult. Okay. We did it for Manzanar. So Manzanar internment camp off the 395. I've been there. I'd been there several times as a college student. Like we visited before it was a national park. As a grad student, I did an alternative spring break to do a cleanup there. And then we went as an adult, and I'd never done the junior ranger thing. So I finally did it. And then the park ranger asked a question, and I almost started crying in front of her because it was really traumatic. Because the park ranger, so Manzanar internment camp is where Japanese Americans were sent and put in concentration camp. The 395 is this highway in California that is in the Eastern Sierras. It is desolate. It is like in the middle of nowhere. And so the park ranger asked me, how would you feel if you were sent here and taken away from your family and friends? What would that make you feel like? And I literally was like, it was 2016, like post-election, and I was like and there was like the Muslim ban happening and everything, and I was just like, I looked at her and I was like, that could literally happen right now, lady. Like the park, I was like looking at the, and I was like, I would feel really sad, and I was like about to cry, and I think the park ranger knew she had like screwed up, like made me feel bad, and she's like, it's okay, here you go, here's your
Here's your
badge.
button.
Here's your button. Here's
You
your
pass.
plastic.
You
junior
pass, just
ranger
don't
button.
cry.
But I totally was gonna start sobbing in
Oh,
front of
man.
her because I was like all emotional. But
So we're talking about
that's-
camping in the great
that's not-
outdoors.
Yeah.
That's not the camp we're talking about, right?
So
not talking about that. Yeah.
I think there are like two, like I think in the Filipino American community, and this is totally not like research based or anything. This is just plain
Observation.
observation. It's like
Two
you-
types of Filipinos.
yeah, two types of Filipinos. You either camp or you don't camp at all. There's like no in between.
Okay,
And-
so
And
Mike
my
grew up-
family has both.
Oh, both. I am definitely in the camp where where we don't camp. I've only gone like 3 times.
in your whole
What?
life.
Yeah. Like
How's that
maybe-
possible? What?
Mike, there's some people who don't camp.
I've only gone
Oh,
once.
wow.
I'm sorry. I told you.
Ryan,
I
Say
told
that
you my.
again.
I've only gone once.
Hear that, Mike?
So I don't
Anyway.
understand.
Say what you're gonna say, Joe.
No, I'm gonna. I think the times that we've gone, at least my family growing up, it was with their friends that do camp. So like Filipinos that do camp. So
Right.
they actually call themselves the camping group, right? And they go camping wherever. But it's like also it's not like like
It's not like real
It's glam-
camping.
it's
It's, like
glamping.
how
camping.
it's like how
definitely-
Mike's mom
It's
camps.
glamping.
It's definitely glamping. They have like an RV.
Yeah,
They totally have electricity. They
Alright,
bust out
okay.
karaoke.
Okay,
Yeah.
Like
So
Mike.
I have a similar experience with
Okay.
that. So when I think about camping, like growing up, when I thought about camping, I totally didn't think about like what camping is, like, tent, and all that stuff, right? You know what I thought camping was? Like the show Survivor. Like you gotta hunt for your food, and you're sort of like naked, or you have to
Naked?
make your clothes. I don't know.
Did you think you were in the Hatchet? Like
yeah, like-
after you read the book?
Like the idea of it's kind of like why would I put myself through a camping experience? I don't think about like REI or like hiking or anything like that. I don't think about that. I think about, dude, what am I gonna eat? Not thinking that you can bring your own canned foods and of course like put it in a
Dude,
so I think
it's not
we're,
even
like,
canned food.
or whatever, right? Like at this point, like that's what I'm saying is like the thought in my mind about camping is like being totally like in the rough and like
Yes.
all that, right? Like seriously,
Survivor,
like
yeah.
Survivor.
Yeah.
Like drinking water from like a creek
Waterfall.
or a waterfall. And so
You
the
can't
only
do
time
that bacteria.
I went camping, I was already in my 20s, and my brothers and I, we brought like sleeping bags, and we brought like some like little tent. We even rented a truck. Like we wanted to make sure that we got to the place and everything. We had no idea what we're doing, and we got there. All our friends were there, and everyone had a blown up mattress. Everyone had a mattress in these giant tents. And there was a plug for your computer so you can.
Yes.
It was an RV, more of like an RV camp, and there were showers. I was like, what?
Yes.
So I'm totally like confused by the whole thing, and I was like, I don't know what this is all about. Anyway, so that's my
So-
experience.
Growing up, I didn't camp because my mom is a city kid. She doesn't like dirt. And so the closest thing that we did was when I was a kid, we went to Yosemite and we stayed at the motel of the lodge. And so when they had told me that, I was like probably 11, 12 years old. And I was like, okay, cool. We're going to Yosemite. We're going to be in a motel. I'm missing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but we're in a motel. So there's going to be a TV. I can watch this week's Fresh Prince because that was important to me because I'm a TV kid. I get to the room. It's like a twin bed and then a full bed for my parents. There ain't no TV. The bathroom is bare bones. The towels and soap and stuff the towels are like sandpaper. And I looked and I was like, this isn't a hotel room. What are you talking about? Where's the television? How am I going to watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? And my mom then took out our portable TV that we had because we were fancy. And by fancy, the portable TV was a 1-inch by 1-inch screen.
Oh my gosh.
And so she's like, here, you can watch your TV with this. So I open it and I try to get the antenna. There ain't no
Nothing.
TV. There's
You were in Campland.
I was, I was like, and my dad was like, "We're in nature here. You're not supposed to be watching television." And I was like, "Meh," and I was all upset. And that was the closest thing I did as a kid.
God. Kidding.
And then we come to Mike.
Okay, Mike.
All right.
Mike, explain.
What was it like to grow up in a camping family?
Yes.
So I mean, we've had very different degrees of camping where it's like if it's just the family, we'll go out. Like one time we were in Sequoia and it was just a very rural campsite. There was maybe vault toilets. What we did
Explain what a vault toilet is.
a hole in the ground, like basically
What?
septic.
It's
So
like an
it
outdoor porta potty.
Yeah.
No, so it looks like a bathroom, but then you go in, there's a toilet, and it's just a hole in the ground.
Oh, got it.
There's no
Yeah.
flushing, man. It just
There's no flush.
Yeah. And we always bring in our own food. I mean, my dad is big on like camping equipment. There's
But
other
by
times when
bringing
it's
their own
like,
food, bringing their own food means they make pots of Filipino food
yes,
at home, like literal pot of like adobo, literal pot of whatever stew, and then they put it in the cooler, and then they take it out and put it on the fire to heat it later.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is their camping.
No, and so there's that, or we eat like spam and Vienna sausages. There's also the group camping that my family does with the other families that they're friends with, because most of our family is actually just like other Navy families that we've grown up with.
You mean the
Um,
camping group?
The camping group, the camping group.
The camping
Um,
association.
They're the ones who bring the karaoke and like the generator. They usually have a couple of mahjong tables going, so it's almost like a family party, but like
Oh,
in the
wow.
woods.
In the woods.
So
We went to one. They're camping at Lake Kachuma, which is near Chumash Casino.
Santa
And
Barbara.
so we went to it, but we didn't camp. We just visited. And then they were playing. They were playing. And then when we were leaving, all of a sudden all the uncles were leaving because they were going to the casino.
I like this kind of camping.
And then the titas had a screen and they were watching some video of someone's wedding.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what kind of this is camping to Mike's family.
So
I mean,
Mike,
we've
which
done
one,
different levels of it, but yeah,
which
What's
one do
the-
you prefer?
Yeah.
I prefer the more like back to nature style one a little bit, but not so much that it's like, I'm not a forager. I don't know how to start a fire from like sticks. Like I'll bring a lighter and a propane stove and make spaghetti. That's about as far basic I can get. But
Do you sleep
I'm not
in a
a-
tent?
yeah, we'll have a tent, or we have a tent now that we can hook up to our car, so we can kind of sleep in both our car and tent at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we're not
That's
quite
cool.
on the ground. But yeah, I mean, like I've definitely inherited from my parents this idea that like got to get back to nature every now and then and experience like the woods,
Yeah.
as it were.
Into the woods.
So did your dad like kind of grow up camping, or like this is something he picked up when he came here to America?
I feel like they would do something like this in the Philippines, but not quite the same. But I think he more like got into it because he joined the Navy and all his Navy friends were doing things like this,
Mhm.
and so like it became like a thing to do. Also, the other thing was like he would be on deployment a lot when I was like a kid, and so he'd only be in the States or at home for like 2-3 months at a time. And so it's like, oh, we got to go do something that's like a road trip, or we got to go somewhere that's not the city. And so like camping kind of became the default, like, let's go to Grand Canyon, or let's go to like Redwood National Forest, National Park. And so it kind of just became like our way to kind of just be with each other without
cool.
like all the other things happening,
Mhm.
So
It's also like it's actually like it's a cheap vacation because you pay by
Oh, yeah, that
card
too. It's
to
cheap.
get into a national park.
yeah.
So now to go to a national park, your pass is $30. Like in 2020, it cost $30 to go into a national park, and then the pass is good for 7 days. But like, imagine when we were kids, like that pass is probably $10,
Mhm.
$15, whatever, for the full week. And so if you are one car and you have your whole family, that's a cheap vacation if you think
Yeah.
about it. Like,
Yeah.
when we've gone camping, I've noticed it like big groups. It's always like a big family that will go. And like there's always like I have like a bingo of like national park bingo of who's gonna be there. It's always like college kids, rock climbers, big giant groups of Indian or Filipino families. And then like and then there's what you think of, right? Like what you think of a camper, which it's kind of sad that like a stereotypical camper is like a white person who's all granola and probably smells like BO. like, like
so Elaine, speaking of that, like have you guys seen that show Naked and Afraid?
No.
You guys don't know
I've
that
only
show?
seen
I
it
think
in
it's on
clips. I know of it.
like,
It's on
National
Discovery.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
it's
I don't
like
watch
Survivor.
Boomba in my free time. Sorry.
That sounds like bad Boomba, like illegal Boomba.
Naked and Afraid. No, so I think it's on National Geographic or something, or History Channel.
We
One of
watched
those.
Alone in the Arctic.
And
It's similar, I think. Yeah.
it's a game show, and it's kind of like a Survivor. They like two people are naked and afraid, and they get dropped off in like the middle of nowhere, and they have a mission. They have to make it to like a certain point, right? But throughout that time, they have to survive by what I thought was camping. They have to survive by like finding their food, and they get points on whether or not they know how to like make food out of something, or how to find fresh water, or all that stuff. So I imagine that's not the camping that we're talking about.
Your image of camping is like survivalist.
Yes, it is. That's
But
why
then
when you
isn't
said
that-
granola white people thing, I was like, that's what camping is to me.
Oh, real quick, going back to the demographics, would you say people who go camping are majority white? At least in your experiences?
It's hard. Like a part of me wants to say yes, but like I know like it's not really true, because like we will always see an Indian family at a campsite.
Mm-hmm.
Like a big ass Indian family, they're always gonna be there. The people
like
who
Latino
are like,
families,
or a
depends,
Latino family,
Yeah.
like there are a lot of people of color who do go camping, but it's interesting that like the jump is to like a white person, and like like Cheryl Strayed and Wild, and like doing the Pacific Crest Trail, like the whole idea of hiking and camping in that way, that is stereotypically white.
And
Like-
the rock climbers too, right?
Yes, which is funny because my cousin Eileen is a super rock climber and has been like sponsored by rock climbing companies.
and our friend Francis, yeah.
Well, Francis is just into rock climbing. Eileen is like a blogger, like a naturalist, like a camping blogger.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But I think, I think to your point, Joe, like, I think the perception of like what camping might be or is to folks is like, if it's very perceived as like this kind of white activity and all that comes with that, versus like what me and Elaine tend to see is like actually like lots of big groups of people of color, because it is an affordable way to kind of vacation with your family and like lots of people.
But it like, at least what I think of when people of color go camping, it's a lot more like bigger families, and they do more of the glamping type of things.
Oh yeah, totally.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like not everyone is built for the survivalist style of like going outdoorsing.
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
I mean, the other thing too is like it's kind of like my parents' perspective. My mom's perspective on like riding boats. She's kind of like, oh, we have to ride boats all the time in the Philippines. Why would I want to do that for fun? And so
that's
it's
how
like,
my parents are too.
yeah. So like this survivalist idea of camping, my dad would probably be like, I grew up on the streets of like the provinces. Like, why would I want to live that life again? Like, I want to go to the woods, but I don't want to like live like I'm like destitute or something.
Yeah.
He wants like the comfortable version of that. So
but you're still like in like a nature environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my dad is jealous that me and Mike get to do these adventures, because like my dad, I think I've shared this before, like he's a Filipino redneck. Like we went to on the way up to Last National Park, we pit stopped at Bass Pro Shop, because I wanted to see if I could get something from my dad. He had like a request for a certain like particular like flashlight or something. And like honestly, I didn't find it. It wasn't there. It they didn't have certain things, and like due to COVID and stuff, like stores aren't like technically as stocked. They're not as stocked as they normally would be, right? Because shipments aren't coming in. But the people at that store, like there are a couple of Filipinos in there, like that I think were like my dad, like redneck Filipinos who like, you know, was wearing like muscle tees, like cut off t-shirts and like shorts, their shirt tucked in, and like, you know, all these, and my, cause like, this is how redneck my dad is. My dad has a hunting bow, guys. He has a compound hunting bow, a 50-pound hunting bow that every time we go out and we tell him that we see deer, my dad says, you should have brought my bow. You should have shot that deer. And every time I have to say, in California, you cannot legally hunt an animal.
In certain
Really?
areas, yes. And not in
Certain
national
areas.
parks.
Not in a national park.
Yeah, but certain areas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. But like, yeah. That's so my dad would have loved to do that stuff, but my mom is a city kid, and she's just like, if we have to go to nature, you're putting me up in a room with a bed. I'm not sleeping on the floor. I'm not sleeping on dirt. Why would I do that?
Do you feel when you do go camping, do you feel that some kind of back to original man kind of vibe, or like a kind of a back to primordial nature?
Like Naked and Afraid.
Something like that. Do you feel like you're more one with the earth, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
Or
think,
not really.
okay, I mean, for me at least, it's like getting out of like kind of the rhythm of the city is just nice. I think for some of the friends that we've gone camping with, they try to take that more approach of like, no, we have to like eat this kind of food, or we have to like do this kind of sleeping, you know, or like, you know, some people are like, oh, I'm just gonna sleep on the ground, no tent or anything. Where I'm like, I don't want bugs like all over me. I'd rather sleep in a comfortable, like at least tent, you know, on like, you know, and so like, I think for me at least, it's just kind of like I just want to get out of town.
The city.
But I mean, there's definitely people who I know that like want to do something that's a lot more like, you know, not just getting out of town, but getting out of like the life that they're in right now, and kind of living this simpler version of like, you know, what life might have
I
been
think
like.
there's
without
also
all
like
the
what you want out of
comforts.
camping, because there are people like Mike who, when you go to nature, you have to do every fucking hike. You have to like almost die. And then just like it makes it worth it when you like come back and then you drink that post hike meal or post hike beer and have a great meal. And I'm not saying that I don't like doing that, even though it sounds like I don't like doing it, because I almost died this weekend twice. But there are other people who camping is fun because you set up the tent, you build the fire, you drink a lot of beer or wine or alcohol or booze, perhaps take some legal marijuana or other substances if you so inclined, and you just kick it and hang out and you watch nature's TV, which is fire. Like, you know, that to me, like
caveman TV.
Caveman TV. And then you tell stories and you hang out and you look at stars. Like my personal thing is I like to just kick it and read and hang out. So when we are in a group, I'm glad that like there usually you can split in two, and there are people who want to do the hiking and do all that stuff. And there are people who just want to like chill. And so I usually chill. But if it's me and Mike, just the two of us, we obviously need to go together because of safety, and then we'll go on hikes, and then it's like I'm about to die, which happened twice.
I have a question that's maybe a tangent, but did any of you guys grow up being like a scout, Girl Scout or Boy Scout?
No.
We didn't have that.
So like,
Wait, you didn't have? What do you mean?
Well, I
in
don't
your
remember
area?
if St. Genevieve had Girl Scouts. I remember there were
Well, it's
Boy
not a
Scouts?
school thing. It's like a outside of school
area
thing.
thing.
Neighborhood thing, I guess.
Yeah.
so my question is this: like, I know Boy Scouts or like Scouts usually like there's a camp component
Element
to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the same for Girl Scouts?
Yeah, there is. Because my cousin, who is super into camping and the rock climber, was a Girl Scout.
Oh, I thought
Oh,
they
she's
just
like
sell
works for the Girl
cookies.
Scouts thing.
Yeah.
She works for the Girl Scouts actually now too. They do sell the cookies. That does, it's part of their thing. But you sell the cookies to go to the jamboree,
Which is in a camp?
Yeah, I think so.
which is a camp. So
Oh,
like,
okay.
remember Troop Beverly Hills, that movie
Yeah.
with Aki?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, it's based on a real thing. You do sell cookies to then go to like this big event afterwards.
Okay. I have another question then. Did any of you guys go to camp? Like, this is part of the reason why I think it's a
Like
very
summer
like,
camp?
like a white
Summer
thing,
camp.
right? Because
Yeah.
I think about, aside from Naked and Afraid and Survivor, you know, when I think about camp as kids, I never joined the Boy Scouts. I was never a scout, you know, or anything like that. But there's
Do you
also this
think,
component of like, you know, salute your shorts and going
Yes,
to camp.
Salute your
Camp
shorts.
Anawana.
Camp on
Camp
Ohana, right?
Anawana.
And you know, like this idea of going away for
Mhm.
a couple of weeks during the summer. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And like doing camp like things, which is like starting fires or having food fights. I don't know. But but like all my ideas of camp was never that attractive or appealing. But I never went away to like camp. I never was interested in going away to camp or anything like that.
I did like
wonder if any of you-
the week-long version of camp, which was
Outdoor,
called
right?
science. It's called Science Camp.
Oh yeah.
And so like,
Hey guys, that's mean.
Girly did that
Just
too.
kidding.
Surprise, surprise.
Of course she did. What'd you do at science camp, Mike?
learned about science stuff.
But it was like
it
a
was
segue.
fun though. It was some camp I think out in I want to say it was like in San Bernardino somewhere. Anyways, we would do like night hikes. We'd learn about like bugs, you know, stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, go canoeing, you know, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
And it was like it was basically for any kid that was like from 4th through 6th grade, I think. And then there was a budget cut, and it was only for 6th graders. But I got to go twice, so I went before the budget cuts.
Wow, lucky.
But you know,
Showing
I
your
mean, like-
privilege here, Mike. Your camping privilege.
But I think it was primarily for like kids in like gifted and talented education gate. So it was like
So Mike's
it was-
showing off that he was in the
Oh,
game
wow.
program. All right,
Humble
all right.
brag.
Nerd. I don't know what it is. Gifted,
Oh, you know,
talented,
I got to go
amazing kids.
twice because I was in the gifted and talented.
Ah, it's only for the
education
gifted
program.
students.
Talented,
Oh.
amazing kids.
So, Mike, you're saying that you were really smart, and then your family liked to go camping, while Joe, Ryan, and I are a bunch of numbnuts who didn't know
Up in the
anything.
streets. I camp on the
Well,
streets. Damn it.
I wonder if like so. I mean, two things about that. One is like I wonder is it like because like I grew up in the suburbs and like we had like regular vacations, and my parents had like, you know, they were like upper middle class by the time we were doing all this stuff, that we just had the time and the money to go camping all the time, or just like, you know. But also like my parents, like they just, you know, they grew up. My mom grew up fairly privileged in the Philippines. My dad not so much, but I mean like the idea that like going back to nature was like a recreational thing that was something to do versus like, I don't know how it was for you city kids, obviously. So
Well, I think your mom actually appreciates nature, even if
Mhm.
she, you know what I mean? Like when we go to places and like when we've gone to places and you just look at the mountains and you look at how like majestic and amazing it is, like nature is freaking beautiful. It's amazing. Like on the hikes that Mike and I went on, it was amazing. Even though I thought I was gonna die and I would just stay on that mountain for the rest of my life. I thought, you know, during the hike it was beautiful. But then there are people who are like, I can just look at a picture and it's fine. I don't need to physically be there, you know? And that I think is my mom. My mom is like, I'll look at it on television. Totally cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if there is a class divide. I'm not sure. Like among like maybe Filipino Americans, like which type actually likes to go camping, which doesn't. So I don't know unless there's actually like a survey out there or some kind of study.
be
that
interesting
says,
study.
like- yeah, it would be. Like, so that's a Hilaupa idea. Anyone out there wants to do a study on like the dynamics of Philippine American camping?
Aw, study.
Well, it's interesting because like the latest trend right now in like outdoorsing is like overlanding,
What's
which
that?
is like
was that?
Of
getting
course,
like
Mike is going to bring this up.
it's it's just like this that you get like a fairly capable 4x4 vehicle. You have like a tent that goes onto the roof of that.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
you have all
yeah.
this equipment, so you go like off-roading, but you also go like camping with your. It's like car camping plus off-roading equals overlanding, and it's this idea that you.
So
like
instead of hiking and walking, you are
You
in
drive.
your car and driving.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
amazing. I like it. I like
And
it.
My
there's, like,
cousin, my cousin actually does that, and he, there were recent immigrants.
Are they in the
Mm.
SoCal Filipino Overlanding Instagram group? Because this is something that we follow.
No.
I'm not gonna lie.
Wait,
Mike follows
SoCal-
it.
SoCal Pinoy Overland.
Whoa.
There's
Interesting.
some group from. I think they're from. I'm guessing they're from like, around like. I guess this is a local reference around like say, Chino Hills, Rancho
Got it.
Cucamonga.
They all have
IE
tundras.
area.
Yeah, they all have
Yeah.
tundras, and maybe a Tacoma, and they trick them out, and then they go camping and overlanding in them.
It's kind of like the replacement for like import racing has become like off-roading. I'm not even kidding.
Weird.
But I mean, it's like
true.
going back to
It's
nature, but
true.
with like fancy cars.
So there's also the Filipino like Harley's Club, right? All the different
Yes.
there's like a bunch of like Harley riders like clubs all
Oh,
throughout
yeah,
California
yeah,
and
yeah.
like Nevada and stuff, and then they all have a what's it, biker dahan or something like that.
Do they go
Every
to
year in
Sturgis?
Central California,
Oh
and they
my
just go
God.
camping. They all go out, but they also have like they bring out a band and they have like a dance kind of thing. It's pretty
cool.
crazy.
mean,
You can look it up on YouTube. I was like,
Because that's kind of an element of camping. You know, some people will bring guitar and then you like sing songs, like literally the stereotype of singing "Kumbaya." Like that happens. Some will bust out. I mean, Filipinos do it by bringing out the karaoke instead of a guitar. They have a karaoke and then they like sing.
so I wonder how prevalent it is in the Philippines, like camping.
That's a good question.
Because
That
I
is a good
imagine it's like mostly Manila residents who will probably go out to some place and start camping, but it's not like people in the provinces like camp.
Well, my dad said that
Right.
he grew up doing that, but he did it with like his JROTC group. So I wonder if
Ah.
it's because he was in that he learned like these nature skills.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Elaine. I think my brothers are older than me, and even my sister. They had like camping trips, and they were in like they were. I don't know if they were scouts, but ROTC is part of the curriculum, and going camping is part of their like field trip. I know a couple of my sister did it, and my oldest brother did it. That's why for me, when I got to the States, I was 7. I didn't join any of the scout stuff, so I didn't really know what camping was, and I only watched it on TV. So
During kind of American occupation of the Philippines, the Boy Scouts of America would go to the Philippines and try to create Boy Scouts, and in an attempt to kind of create
Indoctrinate people.
kind of like
or-
indoctrinate Filipinos in this kind of American sense of like discipline and order, and trying to like quote unquote
Nuts.
conquer nature in a certain way, right? Through like camping and whatnot. So it's an interesting history. Yeah,
I wonder if like the JRTCs and stuff that my dad did is like a offshoot
I'm sure
of
yeah.
that.
I'm
Philippine
positive.
Scout
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
There
feel
was
like one of the biggest things in the Philippines even today is like ecotourism, which is kind of like outdoorsing in the Philippines, basically. But I know that like when my mom goes out to the Philippines and she makes my cousins over there go with her on like hikes and stuff, they're kind of like, well, I guess we'll just go because we'll go. But I'm pretty sure it's something that they wouldn't do otherwise unless my mom was there to make them go, check out these like ecotourist sites around like our province.
So let me ask you a question. How do you feel about like quote unquote going back to nature when it's kind of like a sanitized version of nature,
I'm
right?
fine with it.
You're fine with it. Well, I'm not.
What do you mean
Not you.
sanitized?
Well, I mean, like national parks, for example, like the trails are already cut for you. Like, it's not necessarily like
Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid. Yeah, it's not that weird Boomba title that you mentioned. Right. So, like, is it really
TFAL,
going back?
naked and afraid.
So then, is it really like going back to nature?
Well, I guess it's about like the appreciation of like what I'm learning throughout all this stuff is like this certain appreciation for something other than what we're currently doing. Like, we all grew up kind of in this city, and what I'm learning about like, or what I imagine what camping and nature is all about is, however you get there, it's kind of like this reconnection to it, right?
Yes.
And if not like the nature that you can see, maybe it's just gathering of people without electronics or without like the hustle and bustle of the city lights. So I think that that the only time I went camping, even though it was glammed up and we had like power outlets and everything, we were all hanging out as friends. We just did, and it was nice. It was kind of like this getaway. So even if it's sanitized, I think it's quite fine because I don't want to go naked and afraid. So I don't know, Mike.
So me neither. I need my showers.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Ryan, in that I was reading, or I read this book in grad school called I don't know what it's called again, but it's by William Cronin, and he talks about how this idea of wilderness and national parks and camping and kind of going back
The
to
trouble with wilderness or changes in the land?
I think trouble with wilderness. So it's basically like his thesis is these ideas of wilderness and trying to preserve like nature is actually counterproductive in that it causes people to ignore like what they do like day to day in quote unquote civilization in the city. So
like I'm gonna ruin everything here now because I
Yeah.
can go away and into this like reserve area and
Yeah.
forget about it.
yeah. So like we all live in like in dense cities, suburbs, stuff like that, but like we don't appreciate like nature that's actually here. And it's like it has to be picturesque and majestic for us to preserve it. And if it's not in that level, like a Yosemite, like a Lassen, then it's kind of, we use the land for for housing,
Development,
stuff like that. So it's kind of like the metaphor would be like going to church, and to kind of reconnect in church, and this is a sacred spot. But then like Monday through Saturday, it's like you're gonna live in like sin,
hedonistic lifestyle. Yeah.
What?
so the
Abstinence.
so the preservation of these lands and this idea of wilderness actually it actually kind of reinforces the idea that like the rest of the time that we're not there, we could do whatever we want with the environment and basically waste it. It's a really interesting book, and it makes me think about like I've been fishing before, and I actually like fishing, but yeah, it's given me more of appreciation of we should try to also find nature where we live and try to preserve the nature now, and live in a society that is actually in cooperation with nature, and not necessarily like trying to extract so much and build development. So then we don't have to go away to appreciate it.
There's definitely a level of artifice to it. I mean, on the one hand, you can say that the national park system and all these things are set up in such a way so that like at least those parts of nature in which, maybe arbitrarily there was some value found. Maybe it's just all aesthetics or whatever. At least like it can be engaged with in a way that is, not as destructive as it could be, because it's kind of like regulated in a way. So there's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it, though, is, and I've been seeing this going around lately on social media, is about how like national parks are completely like this colonized, westernized version
Mhm.
of the
nature.
natural state of things.
Mhm.
And that like, these lands were like indigenous lands,
Mhm.
and that, by giving them these names that are not sometimes that are not even like rooted in their indigenous origins,
What do
we're
you mean
creating this.
sometimes? It's all the time.
Well, Yosemite is,
Yosemites. It's Jewish.
or Sequoia
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, the point that I'm trying to make is that, like, you know, it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like if you think about like the World's Fair and like the caging up of like Filipinos, putting them on display. We're putting nature on display in this way, and kind of fetishizing like this version of what the natural state of things is.
Yeah.
But that also, like, to your point, Joe, yeah, are we relinquishing, the responsibility that we should be taking for what we've done to the rest of the natural world by saying like, well, we preserved this part, and so
Yeah.
that shouldn't that be good enough?
Well, I had said this to Mike on our drive, like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if the national parks, because they all have like Manifest Destiny Conqueror names, like, or a decent amount of them does. Yosemite
Totally.
is like a First Nation name, right? But like Lassen National Park, it's named after some dude, right? But like I would like to imagine a time where like the parks are named after the native people who live there. Because like Zion National Park it's one of my favorite parks, I'm not gonna lie, in Utah. But there is a mountain cap that's called the Three Kings, and it's called that based off Christian religion.
Yeah.
But the native people who lived there, they had a different name for it. And like I wish I could know it, and there's like a marker when you're on the trail there, it'll tell you what the native name is. And so I give it up to the national park system now in that they put both. So whoever, like whatever John Muir, like white person manifest destiny that had happened and found, quote unquote, found the park, they will also put whatever native tribe had been there, indigenous person had been there, tribes, and put that name. So I would like to imagine that like people can reclaim that. I think that would be like a true coming back to what this country really is, or what this country was, or I don't know, just because.
But the thing is with the national park, sorry to cut you off, the national park, it's like keeping its pristineness also means you are not allowing the indigenous people to live there, and at least back then, right, live there in a way that it's still how do you call it, like it's still one with nature, and that it's not an extractive society where so it's basically allowing the original inhabitants to live there and live the way they did, in that they were still like one with nature. Does that make sense?
Parks will address that. Like
Got
in
it.
Yosemite, they actually talk about how Tuolumne Meadows, right, Mike? Like the dam that was built there actually pushed out the native Paiute people who lived in the area. The Paiute or the native tribe. So like they talk about it. I think the national park system is really trying, like it's having a reckoning with itself, and that they really try to address it, because it's also like there are still reservations close to all these parks.
Yeah.
Like that's their land. Like,
yeah, I mean, like the legacy of John Muir and the creation of Yosemite National Park was partly to push out the indigenous people who he saw as destroying the land because they were basically living there. And so, I mean, that is definitely a thing that, like, if there was a natural state of things, it would have been inclusive of, the native people living there and treating it with the respect that they originally had for it when they were there, versus like the sanitized zoo version of it. So yeah, I mean, I recognize those contradictions for sure.
It's not like I'm not against camping because of those politics, but
Mhm.
it's it gives people something to think about.
Well, and you think about
going
like
camping.
just like depending on like I guess what part of the Philippines your family is from. Like
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
dad, like having grown up in the mountains, like he definitely had a much more rural lifestyle, and so I think he appreciates that
Yeah,
to a certain
yeah.
degree. That like he was like living like a very like destitute situation. But I mean, like he also like was much more closer to the land when he
Yeah,
was young versus
totally.
like how he lives now. So I think there's a part of him that's kind of like going back to the forest. It's like him going back to like living in the mountains with his family,
Mm.
and that lifestyle. Where versus my mom who grew up a lot more privileged and just likes the idea of like kind of getting out of town and like
Right.
being in nature. So
Yeah,
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I was gonna say real quick that my fear. I didn't grow up in the Philippines, but my fear is that a lot of those places, like the provinces where if you had usually you're asked like, where is your family from? Usually from a certain province, right? I didn't have one. My parents were city people. But I fear that some of the provinces aren't preserving that kind of lifestyle because of development, because of places that now will cater to campers instead of just people going home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like instead, like the naturalness of you going back to, like for your dad, for example, going back to where he was closer to nature.
Well, I think
I
the
fear that
bigger
it become.
sorry, I think the bigger problem of that is not ecotourism, is actually like mining and logging and all those like
Yeah.
multinational companies
Mhm.
like extracting lots of all those natural resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on
I-
that note,
Let's go camping.
Well, like camping is fun. I like to get out and be in nature.
totally. Yeah.
And like I think there's something like there's like a Buddhist practice of it's like called a nature bath, where you like go and you go into the forest and whatnot, and you just be in nature and be in one and you meditate. And there's something calming about doing that.
Yeah.
So that is why, like for me, I enjoy camping.
Yeah.
But I hate elevation. I always get elevation sick, like no matter what.
Mhm.
And bad things happen. Like one time we went to
Uh-oh.
Devil's Post Pile.
Uh-oh.
Guys, I'm going to go
Uh-oh.
there. We went to Devil's Post Pile. It was me, Mike, and my cousin Eileen. There was another hike along the Pacific Crest Trail that you would get to a waterfall, right, Mike? Is that what it was?
Did
Certain
you
waterfall.
chase it?
I didn't go. I was like, I don't think I can make it. The elevation was getting to me. So they moved on. And I was like, I'm going to hang out here at this one spot. I'll wait for you to come back. Elevation sickness, signs of it are lightheadedness, cramps, and you have the bubble guts.
Oh no.
And we were far from the bathroom. So far. And so I was like, what do I do? Like I said that I was going to meet them here. We were like really high up on the mountain. And so I walked away from the trail and I went behind a tree and I remembered, if you're going to do your business, you have to dig a hole. I didn't have a shovel, so I used my boot and I dug a hole.
Yeah, you went there.
And I went there. And I
you
had
use
wet
leaves?
ones. I had wet ones.
Oh, okay.
So at least
Oh.
I had like that. And you're not supposed to leave it out there, but I'm really sorry, nature. I left it out there because I wasn't
know.
because I didn't have a Ziploc. I'm so
Go
sorry.
chasing waterfalls.
And then but I was scared because the trail we were on was a part of the Pacific Crest Trail. And the Pacific Crest Trail is like it goes from like it goes from like Mexico to Canada. It's one of these backpacking trails that people do. And so these are people would like walk on by and I'm like, is someone gonna see me doing my business behind this tree? Or what if a bear comes out and eats me?
That's camping for you.
and I survived. I cleaned up and I waited for Mike and my cousin to come back. And then I didn't tell them what happened. I was just like, we need to go now. We have to go home now. And we made it back to the parking lot where the car was, and I used the toilet there, and then we got in, and then we went back to our campsite, and then I told Mike what happened while we were there at camping, and he was like really shocked and amazed. And then I was like, yep, this is my poop story.
Hey, Elaine,
This is my camping poop story.
you know we're recording this, right?
Yes, I know.
Just kidding.
So I'm sharing with the world that while I do love camping, I hate elevations.
So that happened to me also.
See, I'm not the only
Oh
one.
man,
No.
it's gonna be a cycle of
But it was in an industrial area like near Panorama City. And unfortunately, I didn't have wet ones. So
Oh no! Did you use your socks?
so I'll just say
God.
I'll just say that I didn't go home with underwear that day.
oh my god, this is
This is not the kind of
gonna
getting back to
happen.
nature I wanted to talk about.
This is what happened.
Nature calls. It's gonna be the title of this episode.
That's
Oh,
the
that's a good one.
episode. TFAL. Nature calls TFAL.
Man, all the stuff you guys are talking about, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, totally. We should have
TFAL poops.
a poop episode.
oh my, we'll get so many voicemails. I have a story.
So with that, anything else regarding that? Camping?
I put on Instagram a question about about camping just to get it's not a full and complete study, but there are some people who commented.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Trees and Powder 802 says, love everything about it. Being in nature is awesome. Kieran.
Kieran.
Former guest. I was raised to love camping, fishing, hiking. I was maybe 7 the first time she went camping. We go once a year, tents only. I really don't like being indoors.
Nice.
Wow, cool.
And then there's somebody called the Nuance 2020. Oh my God, I hate camping. My white husband loves it. I always thought it was because Pinoys don't camp. The absence of modern plumbing reminds us too much of third world living.
Oh wow.
So like it runs the spectrum. And there's even somebody saying that they wish they had wanted to camp, but their mom refused to let them sleep in a tent and poop outside. I mean, it happens, just like I said. And so that they didn't really go camping as a kid. So
that confirms my observation that there are two camps. Pro camp and the anti camp. Not anti, but like the people who don't camp.
Yeah.
Amongst Filipinos.
So, yeah, listeners, what are your camping stories? Have you pooped in the middle of nowhere?
That's not a question that you have to answer.
I'll just
the camping one. Just the camping one.
I'll say this. I think in this time of like COVID, like it's one of the few things that we can maybe comfortably do.
Oh, totally.
Be
Yeah.
outdoors. And I think part of the reason we picked Lassen in the first place is like it's one of the least visited national parks in the system. Because almost no one goes. It's far. It was really far. But I mean, I think like, you know, in these times and in like, you know, the economy being what it is and like having to be distant from people, like it's an affordable and like socially distant way of like at least getting out of your headspace for a couple days of things.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
quick question. Do you have to have like a 4x4 to do the stuff that you guys did?
No, I mean you don't have to, but I mean the stuff that I do, yeah.
Because Mike will go off trail and stuff.
Okay.
Because like
So
Bodie
no
National.
Chevy Volt?
Well, we went to like Bodie, California State Park, which is a ghost town, and it's paved, and then the last 3 miles is not paved.
Oh.
And so, I mean, we saw regular cars on there, but I would say like don't have bald tires, right? Like have decent tires, and then
Just
you can
a
do it.
bald head.
So yeah, any people out there, tell us your camping stories, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. And you don't have to give us your poop stories. That's just Elaine and me. But yeah.
805-394-TFAL.
What is that, Ryan?
805-394 TFAL. Yeah.
All right. What's the TFAL? What's numbers?
TFAL.
No.
You want me to spell it out? That's TFAL.
This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.